Hello, everyone. Welcome to Culturism with Azif Mustafa. That's me. I have a fantastic guest tonight, David Morgenstern, all the way from Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden. But as you know, this show is all about everything to do with corporate culture, life, love, and all of that. Uh, this is my working kitchen. You will be able, able to see some people cooking right behind me, but hey, that's life. This is also a shared space. But once again, welcome everyone. Please tell me where you're coming from. I see Willie Nelson here from the States, another my brother Redbeard. Many people from all over the world. Please let me know where you're coming from, what you're doing right now. Be happy to take your questions and your comments as soon as I get them. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's waste no more time. I shall introduce my guest for tonight, David. How are you doing, David?
I'm fine, Asif. I'm fine. How are you?
I am wonderful. So you're dialing in from Stockholm?
That is correct. That is correct.
And what time is it over there? These time differences can get trippy sometimes.
Yeah, it's 2 p.m. So since
It's
we
2 p.m.
shift from summertime to wintertime, it might be 7 hours, it might be 8 hours, but currently it's 7.
Okay. All right, so it's 2 o'clock right here in Malaysia. It's just past 9 p.m. Welcome, one and all. Good evening for all you Malaysians and everyone from the APAC. Good afternoon for you guys in Europe, and like Will Nelson from the States. Good morning to you guys. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to Culturism with me, Azif Mustafa. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, if you've been following the show, it's not good enough for to ask David, what he's doing, what his profile is, and you can check that out yourself on LinkedIn. But we are gonna play a little segment here called 10 Questions. And David, you've not been prepped. You don't know what these questions are, but I'm gonna ask you. I'm going to ask you in a rapid fire manner 10 questions that will reveal to us a little bit more about yourself. So I'll start right now. Your first question is, David, please describe yourself in just 3 words.
Curious, chaotic, and inspirational.
Wow. Curiously chaotic, inspirational, David. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Question number 2. What brings you, David, the most joy?
I think this is going to sound a little bit like a cliche, but when you're doing training, when you're doing development sessions and having people come to you, not at the session, because we can all do trainings where people love it then and there, but when they come to you after a couple of months and say, shit, this one thing that you taught me, it made such a huge difference to the way that I lead and help others. You've really helped me unlock something.
Wow. I have to admit that, I'm not a trainer by profession, but I do a lot of trainings, and I speak to a lot of people through my talks and sessions. And I must say that's one of the key things that brings me joy as well. So we're on the same page with that, David. Who's the most famous person you would like to meet, and why?
That is a good question. So I'm going to reveal the true depth of my nerdness, and I will say John Blanche. If any of you out there are into Games Workshop games and miniatures, you know that he's a famous artist who's designed a lot of the visual character of that universe. So he's an artist, a sculptor, and an all-around very cool dude, or he seems to be.
Wow, nerd alert. Okay, there you go. He's very niche person that you'd like to meet. If any of you know who he's talking about, please mention to us in the chat down below. We'd be happy to hear from you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you?
Oh, I am completely and utterly unserious as a person. So you will hear me joking about just about anything. So if you know me on a superficial scale, you'll probably think I'm a 1 or a 2. But I take my work very seriously, and I take creating results very seriously. I just do it in a fun and very non-serious fashion.
Nice. I appreciate that as well. So, in line with the upcoming International Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March, that I support via the NGO that I support, the 30% Club of Malaysia. Our work is really to increase the participation of women on boards, especially on listed boards. But my question to you is, if you, David Morgenstern, were a woman, what would be your name and what work would you do?
I would probably do similar work to what I would do now. And I think a name that just springs to mind would be maybe Melissa or Daniela.
Okay, Melissa or Danielle. We don't know why. We never know. You never know on these things.
I've taken good names and given them to my daughters. So
you've already taken those. What are your daughter? What's your daughter's name?
Their name Eleonora and Sophie.
Beautiful names, Eleonora and Sophie. All right. What song is on repeat on your playlist?
Ooh, now I have to reveal further depths of my, I don't know, nerddom, but at least kind of niche interest. So I used to be the singer in a death metal band many years ago. I had long hair and dreadlocks and looked far more dangerous than I do now. So I would say it's a song by a Polish death metal band called Behemoth, and it's called Blow Your Trumpets, Gabriel. So warm recommendation if you want to check that out on Spotify.
There you go. Maybe you're going to put that in the comments as well. The Spotify playlist, death metal. Did you guys ever produce any songs that are published?
We did do a couple. None are in the public domain, but if you go to SoundCloud and you check out Morgonstierna, that's Morgenstierna, you will find both some of the techno that I've produced, but also some black and death metal.
Whoa. All right, guys, check that out and post it here as well. Post some links to the song that David put out. Excellent. That's something new that I just learned about you. Thanks for sharing that, David. So, this is a favorite question, and many in the audience will enjoy this question. What is your favorite Malaysian food?
Ooh, I'm torn between a really good mi goreng mamak, rendang daging, or I can't remember the name now, but there was a wonderful hawker stall near to our office in KL where you had an uncle and auntie who did exceptionally good yong tau fu. It was always outside. They would cook it, a la minute. And so when I go back to Malaysia, those things are on my to-eat list.
Okay, audience, put your votes in mi goreng mama, yong tau fu, or rendang daging. There you go. Those were his choices. Wonderful. Now, I ask this question to everyone who comes on my show. Because I do call myself a kindness advocate, and I try and push kindness as much as I can. So I'd like to ask you to name me the kindest person you have met in person, and tell us a story about this man or woman.
Ooh, good question. You have to give me a moment or two to think. I think people that are kind with their time come very high up on my list, because of course when you're young and free, time seems to be an endless supply. But as you get older, I'm 42 this year, you realize what a valuable and precious resource that is. So I would give a call out to, and I think he's actually on this call, a good friend of mine, James Davison, resident of Malaysia. He works in the insurance industry. And when I was the first time in Malaysia in 2009, he took me under his wing and was more than happy to share both his network of contacts in the country, his time, and kind of guiding me through some of the, things that you have to be on the lookout for when you're entering into and doing business in a new country. So I think that was a very good act of generosity with his time and his knowledge. Oh, I can't hear you now, Asif.
I was on mute. So I was just saying, these acts of kindness really can make an impact on somebody's lives. Yeah. I mean, some of those things are not like massive, major things, but just by reaching out and being kind to people, it really, really can, make an impact on somebody's life. So everybody out there, stay kind. I always say that. And your kindness can really, really change somebody's life, really. So thank you so much, David, for playing this game with us. So now that we have a little bit more insight into the curiously chaotic death metal techno musician serious guy that we have in front of us, maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about what you do professionally in your career and introduce yourself in that sense to our audience.
More than happy to, and I'm going to do a little bit of back and forth here, I think. But if we take like profession-wise, I'm a trained psychologist. I really have no clue what psychologists do, but it was one of these university courses that was pretty hard to get into in Sweden. So it came with a bit of prestige. So I thought to myself, well, I have good grades, so why not go for it? Now later on, I'm super happy that I went for this training because it provided a really good foundation for kind of understanding people, understanding organizations, understanding, the world at large that we operate in. I'm not able to read minds or do anything of the like. I didn't go for those advanced classes that were given at the Hogwarts branch of Stockholm University, but I do have the basics well and fully in place. And I would say right now, what my task is to establish a really, really strong fit for purpose corporate culture at the company Curb Food that I'm currently employed as head of people and culture at. If I jump back in time a little bit, when I was done with university. So typically in Sweden, you start studying a little bit later than you do in a lot of other countries. So I started studying when I was about 20. I had taken a course in theater studies before then. Super fun, super enlightening, but you quickly realize that like the 5 jobs in all of Sweden that exist in this field were already taken up by the faculty. So it was like a one-way ticket into unemployment. So that wasn't really a viable career option. But I started my career designing and selling psychometric tests all over the world. So personality tests, ability tests. I mean, we've all used them. We all love them. We all love to hate them. We have our favorites and we have our dislikes. I mean, don't get me started on complete and utter bull crap. Sorry about the language. There are a lot of tests out there that are really, really bad. But there are a lot of good ones as well. In conjunction with this, I've also done a lot of assessment work, so assessing people for senior positions. I was explaining to us if before the call that during my time in Malaysia, we collaborated, among others, with Yayasan Kasana, Yayasan Telekom Malaysia. So we helped design those processes to make sure that tens of thousands of applicants are slowly but surely taken down to those maybe 30 or 40 that have the privilege of getting these Yayasan scholarships every year. And because that's a big investment and also big, I mean, if we're talking about acts of kindness, I really like the whole Yayasan system, giving that opportunity to people from less privileged backgrounds to get a really solid university education. And giving those out comes with a lot of responsibility of choosing the people that will be able to make the most out of that investment. So I remember, for instance, and I'm going off on a specific tangent here, but for Yayasan Kasana, they were very much adamant that we try and capture people that are interested in nation building, not just getting an education and going to the best paying investment bank out there, but who were really, really invested in building the nation of Malaysia in this case, and contributing to that kind of in the longer term. So we had to come up with a lot of custom tests and ways of measuring this, which was super, super interesting. For me as well, so I spent 2 years in Malaysia from 2013 to 2015 as the regional director for my then company, which was called Cubix. Now it's called like Cubix/PSI. It's been acquired by an American company. Super, super interesting experience as well. It was the first time for me having a full kind of P&L ownership. I managed a team of about 10 people. And a real, talking about not maybe corporate culture, but like national culture. It was a real interesting culture clash for me, and a great experience as a manager. I mean, I made so many mistakes early on, but it was a lot of interesting lessons learned. And I also managed to do some, cultural faux pas. But fortunately, we had very nice clients that told me, David, you're probably not aware of this, but what you just did was highly offensive. So could you please, switch this around a little bit? But I think we had enough trust and a good enough relationship that they realized that I wasn't doing anything on purpose. I don't know if you want an example there. I have a pretty good one. It's
we love it. Go ahead.
yeah. So one client of ours during that time was a bank. I think they're probably still a client of the companies. And I put together a proposal for a pretty big project. And in Europe and in the Western world, the concept of the piggy bank is a very, common symbol for banking and savings. So I had put the big green piggy bank on the front page of my proposal. And it never, ever struck me that, this might be a slightly offensive symbol for that bank. And I'm not going to say which bank it is, but I can say as much that even their name indicates how wrong I was and what I was thinking. And again, we managed to sort it out, and we actually won the business. So there was no harm done. But it's like, yeah, you learn those kind of by making those cultural mistakes.
Yeah, I just have to give a shout out to everybody who's on the call. We have Mark from Washington, D.C., Tracy Rubel here. She's in Germany. She's an American and also a licensed psychoanalyst. So if you want to chime in anytime, Tracy, thanks so much for dropping in. So cross-cultural, cross-national culture clashes are a great topic to discuss. But I'd like to ask you, now that you've worked in all these various different companies and with international assignments and different sizes of company as well, what's it like to work like in a startup right now in Curb Food? How different is it from working in these more established organizations?
Yeah. I think the difference is huge. So after leaving Cubix, I went to Ericsson. So I went from like 150 employees to 110,000. And then I worked for Klarna for a couple of years, which is about 3,500. It's a more kind of mid-size. And now with Curb Food, we're currently about 50 employees. most of them working in our kitchens. But I would say that the main thing, and what I'm really, really enjoying so far, and you can probably sympathize with that as if working for a large corporation, that as I've downsized, the amount of change management, the amount of convincing people, getting alignment, it gradually drops with every step. Now, of course, every small organization, or most small organizations, they aim to one day become large organizations, because the definition of success is often growing your revenues, growing your profits, and becoming a large organization. So one penny that has kind of dropped with me is that the time that I have now to build a really solid foundation for the culture work, for the talent management work, for the leadership development work, I'm never, ever again going to have as much time to devote to really thinking these things through and putting the optimal structure in place. As you grow, you're always going to be swept into the day-to-day. There's a fire burning here, there's a fire burning there. You have to convince suddenly not just one person, but 50 people to buy into your ideas in order to get the funding. So I'm really, really enjoying it. I haven't, the amount of stuff we've been able to do in a month and a half, it's like, it's silly almost.
Yeah, the speed is crazy with startups, and I have kind of an opposite experience from you. I worked in startups for 10 years, and then from there went to a large national corporation, and then now I'm with Cellcom. As you know, it's about 3,500 employees all over the country. So it's really moved from really, really intimate into much larger national level responsibilities, and now back to corporate responsibilities. But the challenges are different, but at times the same, right? Because we're talking about dealing with human beings and changing behaviors, changing perceptions, changing mindset. It's the same with humans wherever you are. But I'd like to touch a little bit about, since you touched about cross-cultural experiences that you've had, how different is it working here in Malaysia and the other countries that you worked in when you were, a regional head, and now that you're working in Sweden? What's the differences?
In some areas the differences are huge, and in others they are so small that it's almost silly to talk about cross-cultural differences. People still love to eat, people still love to gossip, people still love to complain about their bosses and their companies. There are some things that are, that are always kind of going to be permanent. But other things, and I think when you're kind of completely immersed in a culture, you don't so much reflect around them. So one thing that struck me when working in Malaysia was how prevalent the nomenclature for titles was. The fact that you have like junior executives, senior executives, managers, senior managers, directors, and so on. That almost every company has the same kind of setup. I've never found that anywhere else in the world. So when people spoke about, so Sime Darby was a big account of ours, and we did a lot of work for them. And I remember someone pointing to a group of very, very young people saying, "Oh, these are our most recent executives." And in large part of the rest of the world, being an executive means being C-level. Yeah, exactly. You're chief executive officer or something like that. And I was thinking to myself, like, damn, these are some young C-levels. They must be like the best of the best. I had another occasion on that theme where a very senior gentleman refers to someone as my manager. But he meant that this person was a manager in his team, not his, line manager. So for a long time, I was completely confused in that company about who was reporting to whom. It made it a little bit confusing. I think you have the concept of like power distance, and there's a famous survey done all over the world where they asked, among other things, the question like, my manager should have very exact answers to all of my questions. And Sweden is a bit of an extreme in this case, where I think only 7% of people said yes. Like, we generally don't respect our managers. We don't have the answers. We kind of tolerate them and let them guide us, on the best occasions. But we're very like non-hierarchical. So that was an adaptation to working in Malaysia and Asia Pacific, where in general, most organizations, now there will always be exceptions, but most organizations are a little bit more hierarchical.
Right.
So I think that was a lesson for me as well as a leader, where I took a very hands-off, very delegative approach at first. And it did work well for some people reporting to me, but there were also some people that I found out a little bit into my tenure that they felt like I didn't really care about them. I didn't care about the quality of their work or their output because I didn't check every detail of what they produced, and I didn't give them tasks on like a day-to-day basis. And I think that one for me also very well illustrates one of the most important things about leadership, that it's the results, it's the effects that you create with other people that matter. So, I mean, my intention had been to empower, to delegate, but the effect that I created was more one of, confusion, frustration, feeling neglected. So in that case, I mean, I had to radically change my approach, not for the people that responded well to being delegated to, but to the other people, I had to step up and become a much more active manager. And for me, that really helped illustrate this kind of ongoing calibration that is at the heart of being a leader. The approach that worked in one company or with one individual, with one group, it's probably not going to work exactly the same way with the next group. So one of the best things you can develop is your ability to read the room, to read the situation, and to adapt and change what you thought would work.
Right. That I have a very similar experience. And before we go to that, quick shout out to Zu Angelica here. Last name, is that Swedish or Nordic or I don't know, Gunnolfsson?
Gunnolfsson sounds a little bit like Danish or Norwegian, potentially.
Norwegian, maybe, yeah. So, hey, Zu, welcome. We have a Viking here. My brother, he's also a red beard like me from the States. A quick question: how do you say greetings in Swedish?
The very quick one is just hey.
Hey, just like Zu was saying to you just now. Hey, right. We all see that in IKEA. In all the walls.
The whole world knows Swedish by IKEA.
So yeah, hey Will, thanks for that question. So yeah, my experience is I was coming off of an assignment. I was a senior manager in a Malaysian national initiative, and we had the privilege of getting these really great, like you were saying just now, these top of the line, cream of the cream young people come on board, because we're considered a very prestigious assignment. So we had lots of people, really, really great people into that organization. So I had treated them with a lot of respect and really hands off, because these were really super smart people, right? You don't want to micromanage them. And I did really well there. But then I was headhunted into another national agency, which was just starting up, and I was given a C-level position. And in that position, I kind of translated what I was successful at before and said, okay, I better be hands-off. But it was a totally different group of people that was working there, and it didn't work, and it backfired big time, because people were complaining to my boss, to the board, even, because it was a small organization. They had access to the board members. He said, my boss isn't doing anything. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't check on us. He doesn't give daily assignments. He's not, so I had to change exactly what you were saying. You need to read the room. You need to know who you're dealing with and who you're managing, and, really customize your approach to the people that you're dealing with. So that's great advice right there. So I'd like to open up to questions. Anybody who has any question, any contribution to this conversation, please start right now. I will be happy to take your questions or your views and address them in this conversation. So, David, now tell us a little bit about what Curb Food does. What do you do in this startup?
Yeah. So Curb Food aims to establish a virtual restaurant chain. So in Sweden and in Europe, we're probably a couple of years after the development that is taking place in Asia and in the US when it comes to food delivery. When I was over 2 years ago, I was astounded by how well Grab worked, for instance. We do have a number of these providers in Sweden, but they haven't taken nearly as much market share. And what the founders of the company realized, and they helped kind of establish one of the bigger players called Foodora in this part of the world, is that even though more and more people are ordering online, restaurants aren't really set up in order to do delivery. You know, they think it's a nuisance with the riders coming and they're disturbing their regular flow of guests and they're negatively impacting the atmosphere. And the food cooked is often not adapted to be delivered for 20, 25 minutes. So we currently have 2 kitchens open, one in Stockholm, one in Copenhagen, opening our third one in Stockholm in about a month's time. And we aim to cover, all of the Nordics, all of Northern Europe with kitchens that only sell food via delivery. I mean, this is not a new concept in itself. If you look at like Rebel Foods in India, for instance, another kind of dark kitchen, cloud kitchen operators, there are plenty of those around. It's just that in this part of the world, it hasn't really been done that way. And I think my role in all of this, and it's really, really interesting working with a completely new category for me, which is kitchen staff and kitchen crew, is building, a great career accelerator for these people, and doing, leadership training for kitchen managers, that kind of thing. So far, of the people that I've interviewed and the people we have on board, is like leadership development it seems to be a completely foreign concept to anyone who's ever worked in kitchen. So I think there are some low-hanging fruits there that are going to be really interesting to explore.
Wow, that's incredible, because I have a nephew who used to work for one of these startups in Malaysia. It's called Dah Makan. And what they do is they're a kitchen and they prepare prepacked food. And he graduated with a food I really don't know what he graduated with, but he was in a kitchen. But most of his work was in R&D. So they did tests on what food, did best, like you said, for 20, 30 minutes in delivery, what the different preparation methods was. But what astounded me was he said in one weekend he had produced, I think it was 25,000 meals. Something ridiculously crazy like that, and for such a young person, because he's still in his 20s, and to hold quite a senior position. I mean, that's the startup life, right? If you show progress, you show results, you're given bigger and bigger responsibilities, and he was doing quite well there. So that's amazing that you're trying to change basically a whole segment of the industry by providing different types of services. So there's plenty of questions here from the audience. We have a young person here called Muhammad Fazli, and he wants to know, what is the attitude that you need to develop to achieve to get to a C-level position? So he's an ambitious young man here.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, Fazli, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a vague answer, and going back to what I mentioned around leadership and what I think is at the heart of successful leadership, which is the ability to see what results that you're creating right now and then to adapt and course correct if needed. The same thing really applies to your career. If your ambition is to move up, you have to see, how are my seniors responding to my efforts? Are they acknowledging them? Are they seeing them? Am I, do people like my ideas and my suggestions in this organization? organization. If the answer is no, then probably try another tactic. And then when you come to a new organization, you have to start all over again. But if you're able to read that and read it accurately and adapt, then I'm sure you're going to have a great career.
Excellent. So those are great points. The ability to adapt, really, the ability to roll with the punches, extremely crucial. But you really need to be noticed, like David was saying. If you toil in back rooms, you need to find ways to, not just to toot your horn for that purpose, but really to just make people aware that you are making an impact in the organization. And one of the ways is really something that I espouse all the time is be on LinkedIn and show up. There's a lot of things that you can share on LinkedIn, that would be able to give you this huge archive of achievements that you've done. And it's like a living proof of everything that you've done, especially for young people. I think it's important to kind of post these things and keep it there so that when people start to browse your profile, they'll see all of these achievements that you've done. This is a great question from, let me see who this is. It's Noor Effendi Muhammad Ali. I think there's a setting in your profile that doesn't allow us to see your name here. It just says LinkedIn user. But he says, what is your definition of a high performance culture?
Ooh, this is an interesting concept because I've seen this term being talked about in some organizations where it was really a buzzword and it was talked a lot about, but people didn't really seem to be able to figure out what it meant for them or how to do anything about it. So it's only through my little bit more recent experience, I would say that some components of high performance culture is that instead of talking about performance and people's performance on a yearly or quarterly basis, you have to lift it into your everyday. So adopting some of the agile basic principles, having a planning meeting at the beginning of the week, having stand-ups where you talk about what has been done, what is on the agenda today, what is blocking us. That will lift the performance discussion into the operations, into the day-to-day. And it will become so obvious who is pulling their weight, who is not pulling their weight, who needs extra help and support, and who manages just fine. So if you build it in very hands-on into your weekly setup, into your weekly rhythm, I think that's by far the best way that you can implement the high-performance culture.
Excellent. We are actually going through that experiment in Cellcom. Like I said, we're about 3,000 strong, and we do have some functions really, really embracing the agile way of working, daily stand-ups. We have the cadence to really, like you said, surface issues if there are blockers, where the blockers are, quickly. And we've shown tremendous, I think, results. One of the examples is our go-to-market group. That used to take, I think it was like 500 separate steps and approvals to get something from inception idea to market. It was just ridiculously long, months and months and months, and we've cut that down to days. I mean, not even a week. So that is because we have really embraced agile. We really embraced the concept of self-governing teams. And they were able to make decisions really, really quickly and roll things out really, really quickly. And this really benefits the customer. So that is, to me as well, a definition of high performance. So we're really aiming for that. Thanks for that question. What's your name again? I have lost you now. Noor Effendi Mohammadi. Thank you so much. Mark Reed, is this what you're saying? Your friend is Mark Reed in Malaysia? Mark Reed Davis.
Mark is one of them, and I think he's joining from from the US. James Davis joining from Malaysia.
So he's asking you, when are you coming back to Malaysia? When are you going to start your own company? Well, he's really persistent here. What will it be, and what's your favorite aspect of being a dad? Great question. Thanks, Mark.
Well, number one, I aim to return to Malaysia as soon as possible, but more likely on a holiday, bringing my kids that are now 10 and 7, and walking them through some of the places. My youngest was born at Prince Court Hospital, so she probably doesn't remember anything from Malaysia, but it would be nice to show her all the places that we went to. Of course, to eat through all the mandatory to eat list. I forgot to mention the dumplings at Din Tai Fung also. Those are high up on the list.
Yeah, somebody was saying, what about main courses? What about nasi lemak versus roti canai? So which is your take?
I think I'm more of a roti canai guy. I do like nasi lemak, but I prefer it with a little bit of rendang or some more protein added on the side. But,
Wonderful. So maybe you can introduce some of these meals to your Swedish population right there.
I'd love to. We have one Indonesian place in Stockholm, which is really not very good. So I'm looking forward. I mean, if you ever open a good Malaysian restaurant in Stockholm, then do ping me. I'm going to be your best customer.
Nice. We have a quick question from Redbeard here, Will Nelson. What's your ideal job? How would you define that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's one that gives me equal parts kind of creative freedom, but also the ability to have a pretty large impact on people. I mean, that's something that you kind of realize over time, whether you prefer to work in a kind of smaller setting with a smaller scope, less responsibility, or if you actually enjoy the fact that you can have larger impact on people. And I mean, I do think that my ideas carry some value, and the more people that I can reach with them, the more people's lives I can improve. Probably more likely the employees of a company than anything else. I have no plans to go into politics, the better. So, yeah.
So it really is a personal choice. Some people, like you said, love to be very, very specific in what they do. And in Cellcom as well, we've just started this specialist track for people because we did find that not everyone wants to climb the corporate ladder. Not everyone wants more and more responsibilities and a bigger title and all of that. And some people are very happy to stay where they are and become specialists and become experts at what they do. And we're building tracks to allow this for different groups of people. So, yeah, great answer to that question. We have.
Sorry, I do have a question for you there, Asif, because I've tried in the past to help companies, establish these kind of dual specialist versus manager track, but I think my efforts have always failed because somehow people in the end never wanted to go for the specialist track. They always wanted to go the manager route, even though they were clearly not cut out to be managers. They would be much more happy as specialists. So do you have some secret recipe for making the specialist track attractive enough?
Yeah, I mean, that's the key word, attractive, right? If and attractiveness somehow equates to pay. And if people see that they will be rewarded by gaining that expertise and gaining that deep knowledge in a certain field, they will be, we hope, I mean, we're just starting this. We hope it'll be more attractive to people. And interestingly enough, I just had a discussion with the CEO of Cellcom, and he was saying, if people go into these specialist tracks, they should be able to make more money than the C-levels if they do gain, global level expertise and become world-class. And I think if that's the kind of message that the very top executives, very top people in the organization convey, I think that will convince a lot more people to try it. But of course, action speaks louder than words. I think we need to, have examples of successes in these specialist tracks. And like I said, we're just starting it. We'll see how that goes. I'll report down the line about that. So there was another question that I wanted to spotlight. It was from Noor Wahida, if I'm not mistaken. Her question was, I can't find it now. It was about work-life balance. I was trying to find it. Yes, here, Nur Wahida Zahari. She's asking, what's your opinion on work-life balance, or how would you define that?
That's a great question, and I think this is it's a tricky area, because for quite some time now, a lot of organizations have gone out, publicly said and communicated to new hires that we really value a work-life balance, and then they've gone around and not acted on that at all. Because, I mean, let's face it, if and back to the previous question, I don't think anyone has ever reached the C-level of a major corporation by not working a lot. So there was a wonderful, I've not been able to relocate it, but it was like an interactive graphic where you had 3 levers, and one was like medium workload, interesting tasks, and high pay. And you could only ever get 2 of those. you could never get 3. Like, if you wanted a high pay and an interesting job, you needed to have a lot of work put in. So I think, honestly, we should communicate to young people joining organizations that you don't have to go through the ranks at breakneck speeds. It's not an up or out culture, unless it is like McKinsey. But if you want to reach the top, you have to be prepared to put in a lot of hours. Now, what a lot of hours means is going to be different to a lot of people. I've realized over the years that I'm really, really bad at being on leave, being on vacation. I struggle to come up with new dishes to cook for my kids. I struggle to kind of entertain them and to fill all of that time with meaningful activities. However, for me, when I work, normal weeks, my whole life is in balance. It's perfectly set up. I drop off my kids on the way to work. I pick them up like half of the days of the week, mostly. I cook. But it's like everything has its time. I don't have to think about what meal to cook next for my kids. I get to do a work that I love, and that gives me a lot of energy and intellectual stimulation. And in my spare time, I can focus on and be a really good dad, as good as possible. For me, that is balance. Decreasing work doesn't give me a better balance. It actually throws the balance off. Now, I know this is deeply personal, and I'm privileged to, in Sweden, we don't pay anything for public schooling and after school care and all of that. Really good public transport, so I don't have to spend hours sitting in car queues and stuff like that. So I'm able to make this work, and I can afford to live in the inner city and be on like walking distance. So I know I'm in a privileged situation, but the concept of balance is going to mean a lot of different things to different people. I think that's at the heart of it.
Yep, exactly. We were talking before the show about the COVID situation and how Sweden has taken a more laissez-faire approach where, what will happen, and there's no real lockdowns or anything like that. We are in, an extended lockdown here. And I have basically been working from home since it first hit, since March. There was a short window, maybe 2 months, that we went back to work. All hands on deck, we called it, but then it was locked down again, and now we're at home. And I personally love it because I get to run in the mornings. That you were saying, it's hard to stay outside in Malaysia because of the humidity, but early in the morning it's nice. It's cool. You can run, and I get to do that almost every day. And if I travel like I do, an hour and a half to get to work, there's no way. It's just impossible. The only time I can run is like 4 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock at night, which is tough. But now I get to do it at a decent time, 7 o'clock. Before 8:30, I'm ready for work. I'm showered, I'm happy. So it's great. I mean, to me, that means a lot. To have that freedom, to have that ability to be with my kid all day long, eat home cooked meals, eat healthier, and that to me is great balance. But Of course, there's the balance of the management wanting to see you and wanting to see, how productive people are. And I think one of the advantages is that we have shown that productivity did not go down across the board in this organization. We have rolled out, like I was saying, products a lot faster than we used to. Our revenue is strong. Our profitability is up. So, things are good. And basically 90% of the workforce is working from home. So there's no real argument for getting to look at people's faces and making them travel to come to the office anymore. So, that's probably one of the best things that have come out of this pandemic is that, that WhatsApp that used to go around, who is the cause of digital transformation in your organization, CEO, or COVID? So the answer is always COVID, because it forced everybody to go digital really, really quickly. So thank you so much to all the great questions we're having here from all over the world. Is it good for a C-level to become irreplaceable? What do you think? That's from Natalie. Thank you, Natalie.
I think the answer to that one is almost already in the question. I would say no, it's not good for anyone. I mean, if you are irreplaceable, you've basically not done your job. You haven't created a strong enough organization that can live on without you. You haven't created change via processes in the sense of, and we were talking about culture. If you can change the way that work gets done and decisions are made, then you've made an actual imprint, and that change will survive far longer than you are at the organization. But if everything is down to you, if the only thing you've done is being really good at giving PowerPoint presentations, and that somehow has made you into an irreplaceable entity, then you haven't really succeeded.
Right. Early on in my assignment in Cellcom, we already were talking about succession plans and where would I go in a couple of years and who's going to replace my job. So in where we work right now, it's part of our job really is to develop the next level, making sure you have somebody to replace your job as soon as possible. But it's interesting what you said about, up or out mentality. And because we are working with a major top league global consultancy right now, and they are very much like that, right? It's either you go up in the organization, you go out. There's no other way. And that to me seems really, really stressful. But it's just a fact of life. It's just, that's how they set up their organizations. And, if you want to work there, that's what you got to do. And they're really good actually at tracking your progress on a regular basis, good at assigning mentors for you, making sure you have the support to move up. But there's really no place for somebody to stay stagnant in those sort of organizations. We're not at that level in Cellcom. Of course, we are a 33-year-old company now. We have a lot of legacy, a lot of history, and we have been, like you were saying, what Kazana is. We were in every step of the way in developing this country, especially in the digital infrastructure and the telecommunication space, and we're very proud of that. And we've built a culture surrounding that. We are making a huge impact to the country, and our people are very proud of that. So having said that, David, I do need you to do one more thing for me. Looking at the time, time flies when you're having fun. It's almost an hour. It's almost up. But this question I have for you, and I'd like you to define what, in your words, is corporate culture?
Now, thanks, Asif. And I think this is the only question that I've been able to prep somewhat for. So if my answer sucks, then, the trouble is with me. So corporate culture, I would go to the very basic definition. And I know I've picked this up somewhere. I don't know from where, so I can't give due credit. But I would say that the best definition is the way things are done around here. So if you talk about your culture being something, but actually what people do and the decisions they make and how they make decisions is something different, what you talk about isn't the culture that you have. It's what people actually are doing, what they kind of revert to in a moment of insecurity, what comes most naturally to them, what's like the default way of doing things every day. I would say that's the best definition I've come across, at least.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And ladies and gentlemen, I know you're having fun, but I really have to call it a night. It's late night here in Malaysia already. I'm so thankful for all of you for tuning in from all over the world. Please help me in thanking David Morgenstern for coming on board tonight. David, if I may request, there's lots of questions in the chat that we may not have been able to address. They'll always be here in this post. So if you have time, go back to them and see whether we can answer any of those questions in the chat. I'll go there myself as well. And ladies and gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to have you on board. And David, I'm so glad that we met here on LinkedIn. The possibilities on LinkedIn is endless. Reach out and touch somebody, guys. Reach out and connect, because there's so many great people out there so willing to help, like David was, to help and come onto our show and share with us. And so with that, guys, please help me to thank David. Please connect with him. Ladies and gentlemen, all of the people in the chat are wonderful people. Connect to them as well. Grow your network, because you never know when the next opportunity is going to come from. One of these people may be the key to unlock this great opportunity that you didn't even know was coming. So with that, I'll have to call it a night. I'll have to say goodbye to David. Thank you so much, David. We'll catch you soon. I look forward to searching out your death metal song on. It wasn't on Spotify. You were saying it was on SoundStream? SoundCloud. Let's go to SoundCloud and check out this song from David. So thank you so much, David. Take care. And ladies and gentlemen, that was David Morgenstern all the way from Stockholm, Sweden. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of things planned for you. There's another Grow Show tomorrow in about 24 hours and 23 hours. Please stay tuned for that. I have two great guests coming on board. Ayu, Shahira Salim, and I are running a free webinar this Sunday. It will be dalam bahasa Melayu. Jadi jika anda mahukan kandungan konten dalam bahasa Melayu, it's called Hidup Dahsyat dengan LinkedIn. Oh, gempak nama tu. Hidup Dahsyat dengan LinkedIn. It's on Run the World. It's a fantastic platform that will allow you to, engage with us, engage with each other while we have over 350 people register for that on LinkedIn. However, you still need to get tickets. At the link. I will post the link in the chat down below, but you need to go there and register and get your free ticket, because if not, you won't be able to join. So to those 200 odd people who have not gotten the tickets yet, please go to the link I'm going to give you and get your tickets. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, terima kasih. Daun keladi kalau ada masa datang lagi. Thank you so much for joining Culturism with Azif Mustafa. That's me and our guest tonight, David Morgenstern. And if you have any other questions, feel free to DM me. If I can help you, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you and I will point you in the right direction. Take care of yourselves. Always be safe. And as always, stay kind. Take care, guys. See ya. Bye-bye.